My daughter-in-law opened my medicine cabinet without permission. She snapped my pills in half and said, "This way they last longer and we save money." That very same night, my heart began to fail. In the consultation room, the doctor looked staring at me and dropped a sentence that froze the room. "Ma'am, someone is altering your medication and that could have killed you." In that instant, my daughter-in-law went white as a sheet. "My name is Sarah. I am 67 years old and I never imagined I would write these words." That afternoon in Dr. Miller's office, the air became so thick I could barely breathe. The fluorescent lights buzzed over our heads while my son Robert held my hand tightly, not yet understanding the magnitude of what we were about to hear. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, was sitting in the back with that polite smile she had perfected over 3 years, the same smile she used when she called me sweetie with a sweet voice while taking away everything I loved. "Doctor, Miller is not one to sugarcoat the truth. She's been treating patients at General Hospital for 30 years and has that direct gaze that makes you feel she is seeing past your skin." When she opened my file, her eyebrows furrowed. She checked the blood results 1, 2, 3 times. Then she looked me in the eyes and asked something that split me in two. "Mrs. Sarah, does anyone else have access to your medications?" I did not understand the question. Or maybe I did not want to understand it. Robert did not either. But Vanessa changed. I saw how her face lost color, how her fingers clutched the edge of the plastic chair. And at that moment, I knew something terrible was about to come to light. "Your blood medication levels are dangerously irregular." The doctor continued with a firm voice but loaded with concern. "According to your prescription, you should be taking 200 milligram extended release pills, but the tests show you are receiving fragmented doses." As if someone had split the pills. The silence that followed was deafening. Robert squeezed my hand harder. I felt the world tilting to one side. "Splitting the pills?" my son asked, confused. "Why would someone do that?" The doctor leaned forward with hands clasped on the desk, because when an extended release pill is split, the mechanism that controls how the medicine is released into the body breaks. Instead of receiving the correct dose over 24 hours, the patient receives dangerous spikes followed by sharp drops. For someone with cardiac arrhythmia like you, Mrs. Sarah, that can cause cardiac arrest. My mind flew back 3 weeks to that moment in my own bathroom, in front of the stained mirror that I no longer cleaned because Vanessa said I wasted time on details. I had opened my pill bottle to take the morning dose and found something strange. The capsules were cut in half, neatly divided as if someone had used a sharp knife. Vanessa entered the bathroom at that moment, drying her hands on a towel. She saw me observing the bottle with a frown and said with that casual voice she used for the most poisonous things, "Oh yeah, I split them. This way they last longer and we save money. Those pills cost $600 a month, sweetie. We cannot afford those luxuries." I remember I wanted to protest, that I opened my mouth to tell her they were my pills, bought with my pension, for my sick heart. But then she put a hand on my shoulder with that soft pressure I had learned to recognize as a warning and added, "Besides, you know Robert and I are tight on cash. Every bit of help counts." I said nothing, as always. That night, I took half a pill as she had arranged. At 3 a.m, I woke up with my heart beating like an uncontrolled drum, sweating cold, feeling like an invisible hand was squeezing my chest. Robert had to call the ambulance. And now in this office that smells of disinfectant and fear. Dr. Miller was finishing putting together the puzzle I had been denying to see. "Ma'am, someone is altering your medication, and that could have killed you." All eyes turned to Vanessa. She, who always had an answer for everything, who always knew how to manipulate every situation in her favor, stayed silent, white as the paper of the medical prescriptions the doctor held in her hands. And I, Sarah Roberts, widow, devoted mother, and forgotten grandmother, finally understood something I should have realized a long time ago. My daughter-in-law did not just want my house. She wanted me to disappear, but what Vanessa did not know is that that afternoon in that office, something inside me also split in half. And what came out of that crack was no longer the silent woman she knew. If you want to know how an older woman can go from victim to victor, subscribe so you can keep knowing stories like this, stories of women who refuse to die in silence. To understand how I arrived at that office with a broken heart and manipulated pills, I have to go back 3 years, to that Sunday in October, when I opened the door of my house in the quiet suburbs and saw Robert standing on the threshold with 2 suitcases and a woman I had never seen smiling by his side. "Mom, this is Vanessa," my son said with that light in his eyes that only men in love have. "We got married 2 months ago. Sorry for not inviting you. It was something intimate. We need to stay with you just a couple of months while we save for a deposit on an apartment." A couple of months turned into 3 years, but I did not know that yet. My house is not big, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen and living room sharing the same space. I bought it with my late husband Henry 30 years ago when prices were still affordable for working people like us. He was a mechanic. I worked cleaning houses. Each brick of that construction cost us sweat and sacrifice. When Henry died 8 years ago of a sudden heart attack, I was left alone with my memories and a monthly pension of $1,800 that barely covered living expenses. Robert is my only son. I raised him with all the love a mother can give, sometimes with too much love. I admit it now. After his father's death, he became more distant, visiting me less and less. When he appeared that Sunday with Vanessa, I felt God was returning my son to me. How foolish I was. Vanessa was 32 years old, 10 years younger than Robert. She was thin, tall, with hair dyed a blonde that did not look natural on her, but she wore with pride. She wore tight clothes and spoke with that fake posh accent that tries to sound refined. From the first moment, her eyes scanned my house as if she were calculating the value of everything. "How cozy, sweetie," she said while entering without waiting for an invitation. Her heels clicked on the tile floor I had just mopped. With a little modernization, this could look very good. I did not like that word. Modernization. It sounded like erasing, like replacing, like everything of mine was useless. The first days were a perfect act. Vanessa helped me in the kitchen, asked me for Henry's recipes, called me dear sweetie with a honeyed voice. Robert worked double shifts at the auto parts factory where he was a supervisor. He left at 6 in the morning and returned at 9 at night. I thought at least I would have female company at home, someone to drink coffee and chat with. How naive. The first sign came the second week. I was preparing a pot of beans when Vanessa entered the kitchen with a supermarket bag. She took out a shiny stainless steel pot and said casual as someone commenting on the weather, "Sweetie, your pots are very old. I bought this new one. It is better you use the modern ones. Yours have already given what they had to give." I looked at my clay pot. The same one my mother gave me when I got married. 40 years preparing beans in it. 40 years of flavor and memory cooked over low heat. "This one works fine," I said, trying to sound firm but without confronting. "Not anymore, Sarah," she replied, and I noticed she had stopped calling me sweetie. Besides, they take up a lot of space. I am going to store the old ones in a box in the backyard. She did not store them. She threw them away. 3 weeks later, I found my clay pots and my copper pans in the trash, broken accidentally when Vanessa was organizing. When I asked her, she hugged me with false tenderness. "Oh, sorry, sweetie, they slipped. But you already have the new ones, right? It is better this way, believe me." Robert saw nothing wrong. "Mom, she is trying to help." The house needed a little renovation. That is how the dismantling of my life began, piece by piece, memory by memory. A month later, Vanessa redesigned the living room. My lace curtains that Henry brought me from the countryside disappeared, replaced by gray and minimalist blinds. It is more modern, sweetie. Nobody uses lace anymore. That is for old ladies. The silver picture frame with our wedding photo was put away because it makes the living room look outdated. In its place, she hung an abstract painting of black lines she bought for $50 that seemed like framed trash to me. But the worst part, what truly broke me, was my mahogany rocking chair. It was a beautiful piece, hand-carved, with curved armrests and a high back. My father had it made especially as a wedding gift. For 40 years, I sat in it to darn socks, to comfort Robert when he was a child, to mourn Henry after his death. That rocking chair knew all my secrets. It had absorbed all my tears. One Saturday, I returned from the market and it was not in its place by the window. I found Vanessa in the backyard, with a rocking chair thrown among old scrap metal and trash bags. One of the armrests was splintered. "What are you doing?" I screamed. "Something I rarely did." "Oh, that. It is just in the way, sweetie. It takes up too much space and is very old. I already bought a new sofa. Minimalist. You are going to love it. That rocking chair was a gift from my father." "Well, your father had very outdated tastes," she replied, wiping her hands on her jeans. "It is time you move on, Sarah. Clinging to the past is not healthy." I cried all night hugging that damaged rocking chair. Robert said nothing when I told him. He just sighed tiredly. "Mom, they are just furniture. Vanessa has good taste. Let her be. She knows about these things." There I began to understand that I had lost something more than a rocking chair. I had lost my son. The 2 months turned into 6, then a year. Every time I asked when they would move, Vanessa had an excuse, that apartments were too expensive, that Robert just had an unexpected expense, that they better save a little more. Meanwhile, my house stopped being mine, and I became a stranger in my own home. But I still had not seen anything yet, because Vanessa not only wanted my house, she wanted me to cease to exist inside it. And little by little, with the patience of a snake, she was achieving it. After a year and a half of living together, I no longer recognized my own house, but the worst was not that. The worst was that I no longer recognized myself. I had become a shadow walking on tiptoes through the hallways, asking permission to use my own kitchen, apologizing for existing. And Vanessa knew it. She enjoyed it. Mornings were my moment of daily torture. I have always been an early riser. Since I worked cleaning houses, I have the habit of getting up at 6. I like to prepare myself a cinnamon coffee as my grandmother taught me, with brown sugar, sit in the kitchen and watch the sunrise through the window. It was my sacred moment, my only space of peace. Until Vanessa decided that moment belonged to her too. One morning I went down to the kitchen and found her there, in a pink satin robe and hair wrapped in a towel. She had moved all my household dishes. The coffee pot I used was stored in the highest cabinet out of my reach. In its place, there was a shiny Italian espresso machine. "Good morning, sweetie," she said without turning to see me pressing buttons on her new machine. "I am going to start preparing breakfast early. Robert needs to eat well before work. You can eat breakfast later, right?" After all, you do not have to go anywhere. I stood there barefoot on the cold floor, feeling how the words got stuck in my throat. You do not have to go anywhere. As if my life had no purpose, as if my days were empty and insignificant. "I also eat breakfast early," I managed to say with a voice barely audible. "Well then, you will have to wait," she replied, beating eggs in my frying pan. "The kitchen is not big enough for both of us to be here getting in each other's way. Besides, I already reorganized everything. Now things are where they should be in my kitchen, where I cooked for 30 years, where I fed my husband and raised my son. Now things had to be where Vanessa decided, but I said nothing. I never said anything. I went up to my room with an empty stomach and an even emptier heart. From the window, I saw Robert leave for work, kissing Vanessa at the door. Neither of them looked towards my window. I was invisible. The unwritten rules multiplied every week. I could not watch TV in the living room because Vanessa was watching her gossip shows. I could not wash my clothes on Sunday because that was Vanessa's laundry day. I could not invite my cousin Leonore for coffee because the house is not up for visitors. The house, which house? The one I paid for with 40 years of work, the one that has my name on the deed. But I did not even dare to say it out loud anymore. The most painful change came when Vanessa decided my bedroom was too big for a single person. One afternoon, I returned from buying bread and groceries and found two men dismantling my double bed, the one where I slept with Henry for 28 years, where Robert was born, where I cried as a widow. "What are you doing?" I asked, with my heart beating against my ribs. Vanessa appeared in the doorway with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Oh, sweetie, good thing you are here. Look, Robert and I need more space. We are going to take the master bedroom. We set up a single bed for you in the service room. It is smaller, but enough for you, right? After all, you are alone. The service room, the maid's room, a space of 6 by 9 feet, without a window, with a naked bulb hanging from the ceiling. That is where I kept the brooms and old junk. That is where Vanessa considered I should sleep. This is my bedroom," I said, and my voice sounded broken, pathetic. "I slept here with my husband." "Your husband died 8 years ago, Sarah," Vanessa replied, and she used my name as if it were an insult. "It is time you get over that. We are a young couple. We need privacy and space. You should understand." "But Robert," I started to say. "Robert agrees," she interrupted me. "In fact, it was his idea. He is tired of you pretending this house is still yours when clearly it belongs to both of us now. We are your family now." Those words were like acid in an open wound. Robert, my son, wanted me to sleep in the service room, wanted to erase me from the spaces I built with his father. That night when he arrived from work, I waited for him in the living room. I needed to hear it from his mouth. I needed him to look me in the eyes and tell me it was true. "Robert, do you want me to leave my room?" He did not even look at me. He was tired, with his coveralls stained with grease, shoulders slumped. "Mom, do not start. Vanessa and I need our space. We are no longer newlyweds living in your house. This is temporary until we leave, but while we are here, we need to be comfortable." "And me?" I asked, and I hated how weak my voice sounded. "Do I not need to be comfortable in my own house?" There's something changed in his expression, a shadow of annoyance, of being fed up. See, that is why Vanessa says you are difficult. You always play the victim. We are asking you for a temporary favor and you turn it into a drama. You know what, Mom, grow up. You are no longer the queen of this house. I froze. My son. The boy I rocked when he cried at night. The teenager I defended from bullies at school. The man I supported when he lost his first job. Just told me to grow up, that I was not the queen of my own house. I moved to the service room that same night. Alone. In the dark. Lying on a single bed that smelled of dampness. I heard through the walls how Vanessa and Robert laughed in my bedroom, in my new bed that they had bought without asking me. And there, in that room where I kept the brooms, I began to understand something terrible. Vanessa had not invaded my house out of necessity. She had done it for conquest, and Robert was not her victim. He was her accomplice. But the worst was yet to come, because when Vanessa finished taking my space, she decided it was time to take my dignity too, and for that, she needed me to disappear a little every day, until finally I ceased to exist completely. The first day of every month I went to the bank to collect my pension, $1,800 that the government gave me for the years I worked cleaning offices and other people's houses. It was not much, but it was mine. It covered my medicines, my food, my personal expenses. It was my independence, the only thing I had left, until Vanessa decided that money also belonged to her. It was a Tuesday in February. I remember the sticky heat that was already announcing spring. I had just returned from the bank with my envelope of cash when Vanessa intercepted me in the living room. She had a folder in her hands and that smile I had already learned to fear. "Sweetie, we need to talk about money," she said, sitting on the sofa she had bought to replace my old couch. She patted the cushion next to her, like someone calling a dog. "Sit down." I sat down, hugging my purse against my chest, as if that could protect me from what was coming. "Look, I have been doing the math." She opened the folder and took out a sheet full of numbers. "You live here. You use electricity, water, gas. You eat what we buy. It is fair that you contribute, right? But I buy my own things," I said, feeling the floor move under my feet. "I pay for my medicines. I buy my food." "Oh, Sarah, please." She interrupted me, and her voice lost all feigned sweetness. "Your food, you eat what I cook. You use my gas. You dirty the dishes I wash. The electric bill last month came to $300. Do you know why? Because you spend all day with the fan on in that little room where you sleep. $300. I knew it was a lie. Our electric bill had never passed $150, even in the hottest months. But Vanessa had the paper in her hand, the printed numbers, the sure voice of someone who knows she has the power. Besides, there is the water. She continued, pointing to another line on her invented list. "You shower every day. You wash your clothes. And then there is the food. I calculate you eat about $200 a month of what we buy. Vanessa, I buy my own bread, my milk, crumbs." She exploded, and there I saw the real woman behind the mask. "You buy pure crumbs and want us to support you as if you were a queen. Well, it is over, Sarah. Either you pay your share or look for somewhere else to live." The silence that followed was like a punch in the stomach. Look for somewhere else to live. In my own house. In the house Henry and I built brick by brick. How much I asked, and I hated myself for sounding so weak. "Half of your pension," she said, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. $900. It is what is fair. With $900 from my $1,800, I would have $900 left. My heart medicine costs $600. That left $300 for transport, for any emergency. It was impossible. It was suffocating. It was robbery. But I looked at those cold and calculating eyes, and I knew that if I refused, Vanessa would find a way to make my life even more miserable, or worse. She would convince Robert that I was a burden they should get rid of. "Okay," I whispered, and I felt something inside me break, definitely. Vanessa smiled, satisfied like a cat with a trapped mouse. "I knew you would understand. From now on, every first of the month, you give me your money. I will manage everything, don't worry, manage. What a pretty word to say. I will control every last dollar that belongs to you." That month, I handed over my envelope, the next one too, and the next. Meanwhile, I watched how Vanessa bought new clothes at the mall, how she got her nails done every week at the salon for $50 a session, how she ordered delivery food from expensive restaurants because she was too tired to cook, all with the money I handed her as tribute for existing in my own house. But the biggest humiliation did not come from the numbers. It came from the words. It was a Saturday afternoon. Vanessa had invited 3 friends to lunch. I was in my little room reading an old magazine when I heard their voices in the living room. They spoke loudly, laughing scandalously. Curiosity made me approach the door. "No, seriously, girls," Vanessa was saying between loud laughs. "I live with my mother-in-law, and it is a nightmare. The old lady spends all day doing nothing, just wasting electricity and food. And why don't you kick her out?" One of her friends asked. "Oh, because Robert is very good, very noble. But I already told him, either your mom cooperates or she leaves. Now she gives me half her pension every month. Something right." The laughter that followed pierced me like knives. She called me the old lady. Said I spent all day doing nothing when I cleaned the entire house because she never lifted a finger. Bragged in front of her friends that she had forced me to pay her to live in my own house. Damn mother-in-law, said another friend. They are a burden, truthfully. My mom also has one and says the same. They just get in the way and spend. Exactly, Vanessa replied. But well, at least I have her controlled. I give her enough for her meds, and that is it. The rest I keep because honestly, I do work. I work putting up with her. They laughed. They all laughed at me while I was 10 feet away, hiding like a thief in my own house, feeling how every word made me smaller, more insignificant, more invisible. When Robert arrived that night, I tried to talk to him. I told him what Vanessa had said, how I felt, how much it hurt to pay for a roof that was already mine. He did not even look up from his cell phone. Mom Vanessa works all day maintaining this house. It is normal she is stressed and vents with her friends. Stop spying on conversations that are not for you. Works all day, I exploded, and my own voice surprised me. Vanessa does not work. She spends all day watching TV while I clean. I cook what little they leave me. I wash. Enough. Robert interrupted me, and in his tone there was something new, something hard, almost cruel. I am tired of your dramas. Vanessa is right. You are a burden, an emotional burden that does not stop complaining. You should be grateful we let you live here. Let me live here, in the house with my name on the deeds. Grateful to my son for not kicking me into the street from my home I did not answer. What could I say? My son was no longer my son. He was Vanessa's husband, the man she had molded during 3 years of constant manipulation. The boy I raised with love and sacrifice had disappeared, replaced by this stranger who saw me as a nuisance. That night, lying in my single bed in the service room, I did the math. With what little I had left after giving money to Vanessa, I barely had enough for my heart pills. If I had any emergency, if I needed to go to the doctor, if my shoes broke, I would not have how to pay for it. I was trapped, a prisoner in my own house, paying for the privilege of being humiliated, and the worst was about to come. Because Vanessa had discovered that as long as I was alive, she would have to share the space, share Robert's attention, share the inheritance she coveted so much. And a woman like Vanessa does not know how to share. She only knows how to take, consume, destroy. My pills were in the bathroom cabinet, the same ones that kept me alive, the same ones that cost $600 a month. And Vanessa had already seen them. The diagnosis arrived 6 months ago. In the middle of August, cardiac arrhythmia, said the cardiologist at General Hospital. Nothing fatal if controlled, but dangerous if ignored. My heart beat irregularly, sometimes very fast, sometimes skipping beats as if forgetting its function. They explained it was common at my age, aggravated by years of hard work and the stress of becoming a widow. Dr. Miller, a serious man with thick glasses, handed me the prescription with a grave expression. Mrs. Sarah, this medication is vital. It is called Cardiosem Extended Release, 200 milligrams. You must take it exactly as indicated. 1 complete capsule every 24 hours. Never under any circumstances split or crush the pills. Understood. What happens if I do? I asked, without imagining that question would have such terrible answers. The capsules have a special coating that releases the medicine gradually throughout the day. If you break them all, the content is released at once. It can cause a dangerous drop in blood pressure, severe dizziness, or in your case, worsen the arrhythmia until causing cardiac arrest. I nodded, scared, but confident. I would follow the instructions to the letter. I wanted to live. I still had things to do, even if my life had been reduced to that dark little room and counting the days, hoping everything would improve. The prescription cost $600 per box, enough for a month. It was almost all of what I had left after paying Vanessa, but I had no choice. Without those pills, my heart would turn into a time bomb. When I arrived home that day with the pharmacy bag, Vanessa was in the kitchen eating imported cookies that cost $10 a pack. She saw me enter and her eyes immediately nailed onto the bag. "What did you buy?" she asked with that casual tone she used when she was calculating something. "My medicines. I have a heart problem." She got up and snatched the bag from my hands before I could react. She took out the box, read the price on the sticker. I saw how her expression changed, how her eyes narrowed doing mental numbers. $600, she said, whistling softly, each month. That is $7,200 a year just on pills. I need them to live, I replied, extending my hand to recover my box. She held it out of my reach, studying it as if it were a valuable object. "Do you really need a whole pill every day? It seems like a lot. Surely half is enough. That way they last you 2 months instead of 1. You save $600. The doctor said I cannot split them." "Doctors always exaggerate," she replied with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "They want to sell more medicines. It is a business. But we are not rich, Sarah. We have to be smart with money." She returned the box with reluctance. That night, I stored my pills in the bathroom cabinet, that old furniture with the stained mirror where I had always kept my things. I thought they would be safe there. How foolish I was. The first 3 months, everything went well. I took my pill every morning. My heart stabilized. The dizziness disappeared. Dr. Miller was satisfied with my progress. "I see you follow the indications to the letter, Mrs. Sarah." I like that. But Vanessa had not forgotten about those $600 monthly. I saw her looking at me sideways when I went to the bathroom in the mornings. I heard her make comments about how expensive it is to maintain old people, about how much old folks spend on medicines they probably do not even need. One day, 4 months after my diagnosis, I went to the market to buy vegetables. When I returned, I noticed something strange. The cabinet was slightly open, something I never left like that. I opened it and checked my pill bottle. Everything seemed normal. It was in its place with the correct amount of capsules. But that night, when I took my dose, something felt different. The capsule seemed smaller, lighter. I observed it under the light of the naked bulb in my room. It had a faint line in the center, as if it had been opened and closed again. I attributed it to my imagination, to my growing paranoia. I took it. At 2 in the morning, I woke up with my heart racing, beating so hard I felt the pulsations in my ears. The room was spinning. My head weighed like a stone. I tried to get up and almost fell. The walls moved, the floor tilted. I reached the bathroom on all fours, vomited, sat on the cold floor, shivering. I spent 2 hours there until the episode passed. In the morning, I felt exhausted, confused. I thought it had been something I ate, maybe the chicken left over from dinner, but it happened again and again and again. Every week I had an episode. My heart went wild in the middle of the night, or my pressure dropped suddenly during the day, and I had to sit down before fainting. The dizziness was constant. I started walking, sticking to the walls for fear of falling. Robert noticed nothing. He left early, arrived late, barely saw me. Vanessa, on the other hand, watched me with that expression I now recognize as satisfaction, like someone watching a plan unfold exactly as planned. "Do you feel okay, sweetie?" She would ask me with fake concern when she saw me pale, holding onto the doorframe. "You look bad. Could it be you are being dramatic again? You know how old people are always seeking attention." "I feel dizzy," I managed to say. "Oh, but if you do nothing all day, how are you going to get dizzy? Surely it is psychological. You should stop thinking so much about diseases. Psychological. As if the irregular beats of my heart were my invention, as if the cold sweat and tremors were theater to get attention. 3 weeks ago, things got worse. I went to the bathroom one morning, opened my pill bottle and froze. The capsules were cut, all of them, neatly divided in half with a clean cut, as if someone had used a sharp knife or scissors. My heart skipped a beat that had nothing to do with arrhythmia. It had everything to do with fear. Vanessa entered the bathroom at that moment as if she had been waiting. She dried her hands on a towel with that casual expression I knew so well. "Oh yes," I split them. She said like someone commenting they wash the dishes. "This way they last longer, sweetie, and we save money. Those pills cost $600 a month. We cannot afford those luxuries." The doctor said. I started. But my voice came out broken. Without strength. "The doctor does not pay the bills here." She interrupted me and her tone hardened. "We do. Robert and I work hard for this money. You just spend it. So we are going to be smart. Half a pill is enough. That way they last 2 months. And before you start with your drama, I inform you that Robert already agrees." Robert agreed. My son had authorized them to alter my medication. The same son I breastfed, the one I cared for when he had pneumonia at 7 years old. The one I waited up for every night of his adolescence. I wanted to protest. I wanted to scream at her that those pills kept me alive, that the doctor had been very clear about not splitting them. But then Vanessa put a hand on my shoulder with that pressure I had learned to recognize as a silent threat. Besides, you know Robert and I are tight financially. Any help counts. Or do you prefer we ask you to leave? Because that option is also on the table, sweetie. I remained mute, trapped between two horrors, taking altered medication that could kill me, or ending up on the street without a roof or money, at my 67 years, sick heart, with no one else in the world. I took the half pill, and the next one, and the next one. My body began to collapse. The episodes intensified. I stopped being able to sleep fully for fear of not waking up. Every irregular beat reminded me I was playing Russian roulette with my own life. And Vanessa knew it. She saw it in my eyes every time I wobbled, every time I grabbed the furniture not to fall. It was not worry I saw there. It was anticipation, like someone waiting for the day to finally collect a long-awaited prize. She was not taking care of me. She was killing me, slowly, calculatedly, with the precision of someone who knows exactly what she does, and I was letting her do it. The nights became my personal hell, lying on that single bed in the service room. With the bulb off because Vanessa complained I wasted unnecessary light, I listened. I listened to everything through the thin walls of my own house, and what I heard destroyed me more than any physical pain. It was almost midnight when I heard them. Robert had just arrived from his double shift, exhausted as always. I heard his heavy steps in the hallway, the squeak of my old bedroom door opening, then Vanessa's voice, soft and manipulative like poison wrapped in honey. "My love, we have to talk about your mom." I remained motionless, holding my breath. My heart beat irregularly as it always did lately, but now for a different reason, for fear of what I was about to hear. "Not now, Vivi. I am dead tired," Robert replied with a hoarse voice. "It is important. Look, I know she is your mom and you love her, but we have to be realistic. She is dramatizing all this about her illness." Silence. A silence that seemed eternal to me. "What do you mean?" my son finally asked. "That she is exaggerating her symptoms to get attention. Old people do that, love. My grandmother was the same. She invented pains so we would all be attentive to her. Your mom does the same, but the doctor said she has arrhythmia." Of course she has arrhythmia. Vanessa interrupted him, and I could perfectly imagine her expression, that mixture of feigned patience and condescension. But it is not as serious as she paints it. Have you seen how suddenly she gets dizzy when she wants us to pay attention to her? How she always feels bad precisely when we are having a moment alone? I had not thought about that. Robert said, and in his voice I detected doubt. My son was doubting me. Well, think about it. She has turned this house into a hospital where she is the eternal patient and we are the nurses. I cannot take it anymore, Robert. I arrive tired after shopping, cleaning, cooking for the three of us, and she is lying down complaining of dizziness. Dizziness from what if she does absolutely nothing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear through that wall and show my son the truth, that I cleaned what she dirtied, that I cooked my own food because she had forbidden me from using her kitchen at convenient times, that I got dizzy because her hands had altered my medication. But my voice did not come out. I stayed there, paralyzed in the dark, listening to how Vanessa wove her web of lies around my son. Besides, she continued, and her voice became softer, more intimate. I think she is faking so we do not leave. She knows if she is very sick, you will never dare to look for our own place. It is emotional manipulation, love, and it is working. I do not know Vivi. She is my mom, and I am your wife. She replied, and now her tone had an edge. Who is more important, the woman with whom you build your future, or the woman who already lived her life and now only wants to control you? Because that is what your mom does. Robert. She controls you with guilt. The silence that followed lasted an eternity. I was trembling, sheets pressed against my chest, praying to God my son said something, that he defended me, that he remembered who I really was. You are right, Robert finally said, and those 3 words went through me like bullets. She has been very demanding lately, always with complaints, always playing the victim. Exactly, Vanessa said, triumphant. And about her pills, did you see how dramatic she got when I told her to split them to save? As if $600 were nothing. Do you know how much we spend on the house every month? More than $3,000. And she complains about contributing $900. Yes, it is true. Pills are expensive. They are expensive because she insists on buying name brand. I told her there are generics that cost half, but no. She wants the expensive ones. And then says, she has no money. Please. That was a lie. Pure lie. Doctor. Miller had explained to me that that specific medication had no generic version, that those $600 were the standard price. But Vanessa lied with such conviction that even I, who knew the truth, almost came to doubt. And what do you suggest? Robert asked. And in his voice there was no longer resistance, only fatigue and resignation, that we set clear limits, that we make it clear to her that this is our house now, that we make the decisions. If she does not like it, she can look for another place. She has her pension. She can rent a little room somewhere. As if I were trash you throw out when it gets in the way. As if 67 years of life, 40 of marriage, 30 of paying for this house meant nothing. I do not know if I can do that, Vivi. She is still my mother. Love. And now Vanessa's voice became sweet again, seductive. I know you have a good heart. That is why I love you. But your kindness cannot turn into weakness. Your mom is taking advantage of you. Of us. And if we do not put a stop to it now, this will never end. Do you want us to spend our whole lives locked up here, waiting for her to die so we can live in peace, waiting for me to die? She said it just like that, without beating around the bush, without shame. And Robert did not protest. He did not say, do not speak like that about my mother. He said nothing. Let me think about it. He finally murmured, there is not much to think about love. Either your mom changes her attitude and stops making drama, or we will have to take difficult decisions for us, for our future, after that silence. Then sounds I did not want to identify. My son and his wife in my bed, in my room, discussing my future as if I were a problem to solve, an obstacle to remove. I stayed awake all night, eyes open in the dark, feeling how every word I had heard buried itself deeper in my chest. My son, the child born from my body, who suckled from my breast, who learned to walk holding onto my hands, believed I was a manipulator, believed I exaggerated my illness, believed I deserved to be thrown into the street. The following nights were worse because now I could no longer not listen. Every nightly conversation between them was a new stab. Your mom left dishes in the sink again. I do not know why we give her a roof if she cannot even clean up after herself. Sarah ate some of the chicken I had saved for our lunch tomorrow. She is used to taking what is not hers. Did you see your mom went out without warning? Surely she went to gossip with the neighbors, to cry to them about how badly we treat her. She is a busybody. And Robert just nodded. Or worse, added his own complaints. You are right, she is becoming impossible. I noticed it too. Every day she is crankier. I think we are going to have to talk seriously with her. Every night I died a little more. Not from the heart, although that also failed. I died from the certainty that my son had chosen to lose me. That Vanessa had not had to try very hard to convince him that I was not worth it. One early morning, after a particularly cruel conversation where Vanessa suggested that maybe my convenient illness would disappear if they forced me to move, I had a panic attack. My heart accelerated to levels I had never experienced. The room walls spun. I felt I was drowning, that I was dying. I managed to drag myself to the hallway. I held onto the wall, trying to reach their door to ask for help. I fell to my knees halfway there. Help! I whispered, but my voice did not come out. Robert, help. Their bedroom door was closed, lights off, and me there lying on the floor of my own house, feeling my heart beat erratically, praying my son would come out and see me. No one came out. No one heard. Or worse, they heard and decided to ignore me. I managed to drag myself back to my room. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the floor, back against the wall, hoping every irregular beat was not the last. In the morning, when they saw me pale and trembling, Vanessa just said, "Again with your dramas, sweetie. You should already get an Oscar for these performances." And Robert laughed. My son laughed. There I understood something I should have accepted months ago. I was completely alone, in my own house, surrounded by my own blood. I was more alone than if I lived on the street. The question was no longer if Vanessa wanted me to disappear. The question was how much longer I could survive her plan. And the answer, with my split pills and my heart failing every night, was not much. It was a Thursday night when my body finally gave up. I had spent the whole day feeling strange, as if I were floating outside my own body. The dizziness was constant. My vision blurred every time I stood up. But I said nothing. I had already learned that complaining only brought mockery and accusations of being dramatic. It was 11 at night. Robert had already arrived from work and eaten dinner in silence while Vanessa told him about her shopping day. I was in my little room lying down trying to calm my breathing. Every inhalation was an effort, as if I had a rock on my chest. Then it happened. My heart stopped. Not literally, but that is how it felt. 1 beat, 2, 3, and then nothing. A terrifying void that lasted eternities. When it beat again, it did so with such force that my body arched on the bed. Then another pause, another void, another violent beat. I could not breathe. I could not scream. I could only bring my hand to my chest and feel how my heart rebelled against my body, beating without pattern, without rhythm, without control. I managed to fall out of bed. The thud against the floor echoed in the house. I heard hurried steps. My room door flew open and Robert appeared, eyes wide with panic. "Mom!" he shouted, kneeling beside me. "What is wrong?" I could not answer. I only pointed to my chest, eyes full of tears that were not only from physical pain, but from the relief of seeing my son finally look at me with real concern. Vanessa appeared behind him in a satin robe and a face of annoyance. What happened now? Call an ambulance. Robert ordered, holding my head. His voice trembled. "Quick, Vanessa." I saw the hesitation in her eyes. For an eternal second, Vanessa looked directly at me, and I saw the naked truth in her expression. She was calculating if it was worth calling for help or if it would be better to let nature run its course. Vanessa Roberts shouted, and she blinked, breaking the spell. I'm going, always so exaggerated. she murmured while taking out her cell phone. The following minutes were a blur of pain and terror. My heart continued its erratic dance, beating wildly and then stopping. I sweat cold. My lips went numb. Robert cried, holding my hand, repeating, "Hold on, Mom, hold on." The ambulance arrived in 15 minutes that seemed like hours. The paramedics entered with their equipment. They put oxygen on me, monitored my heart. I heard technical words I did not understand. Severe arrhythmia, fibrillation, unstable. They loaded me onto the stretcher. Robert got in the ambulance with me, face decomposed. Vanessa stayed at the door of the house, arms crossed, watching me leave with an expression I could not decipher, but which was not exactly concern. In the general hospital, they took me straight to the ER. Doctors and nurses moved around my stretcher like organized ants. They connected me to machines that beeped constantly. They injected me with something that made the world become blurry and distant. When I woke up, it was already early morning. I was in a hospital bed connected to a cardiac monitor, emitting regular beeps. Robert was asleep in an uncomfortable chair next to my bed head, resting on the mattress. My hand was between his. For a moment, just a moment, I saw my boy, the 10-year-old Robert who fell asleep next to my bed when I was sick with the flu, the teenager who took care of me when his father worked nights, my real son, before Vanessa. A doctor entered with a tablet in her hands. It was Dr. Miller, the same one who had treated me since my diagnosis 6 months ago. Her expression was serious, worried. "Mrs. Sarah," she said softly, waking Robert with the sound of her voice, "I need to ask you some important questions." Robert sat up immediately, rubbing his eyes. "Is my mom okay?" "She is stable now. But what happened last night was very grave. She had episodes of ventricular tachycardia. Her heart was completely out of control. If she had arrived 10 minutes later..." She left the sentence unfinished, but we all understood the ending. "But she has her medication," Robert said, confused. "She takes it every day." "That is precisely what worries me," Dr. Miller replied, looking directly at me. "We did complete blood tests. Your medication levels in the blood are extremely irregular. You have very high peaks followed by dangerous drops. That should not happen with your extended-release medication." My heart, although now stable thanks to intravenous drugs, skipped a beat. I knew what was coming. Mrs. Sarah. The doctor continued pulling up a chair and sitting in front of me. "Does anyone else have access to your medications?" The question floated in the air like thick smoke. Robert looked at me, waiting for my answer. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. "How do you tell your son that his wife is altering your medications? How do you pronounce those words without destroying what little remains of the family mom?" Robert said, squeezing my hand, "Answer. Did anyone touch your pills?" I started with a broken voice. At that moment, Vanessa entered the room. She had her hair perfectly styled, makeup applied, dressed as if she were going to a meeting and not to visit her mother-in-law in the hospital. She was carrying a plastic bag. "Good morning," she said with a bright smile. "I brought Sarah's pill bottle. I thought the doctors would want to see it." Dr. Miller extended her hand. "Yes, I was just about to ask for it. Thank you." Vanessa handed her the bottle. For a second, our gazes crossed, and I saw something in her eyes that froze my blood. Defiance. She was daring me to speak, sure that I would not dare. Dr. Miller opened the bottle and poured some capsules into her hand. Her expression changed immediately. Her frown deepened. Her lips tightened into a thin line. "These pills are split," she said, and her voice had a sharp edge. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the machines seemed to stop making noise. "Split?" Robert asked, looking at the capsules in Dr. Miller's hand. "I do not understand." Dr. Miller held up one of the half pills, showing it clearly. Someone cut them in half, very neatly, with something sharp. Her eyes moved between Vanessa and me. "Who did this?" Vanessa went rigid. I saw the color begin to leave her face, but her voice came out firm, almost offended. "I know nothing about that." Sarah keeps her medicines in her bathroom. I do not even touch them. Mom. Robert turned to me. Did you split them? I shook my head. Dr. Miller stood up. Her presence filled the room. I need you to understand the gravity of this. Extended release pills must never be split. The special coating controls how the medicine is released over 24 hours. When that coating is broken, all the content is released at once. And what does that mean? Robert asked, although his voice was already trembling because he knew the answer would not be good. It means that instead of receiving a stable dose all day, Mrs. Sarah received massive doses followed by periods without medication. For someone with her heart condition, that is like playing Russian roulette. Every dose was a bet on whether her heart would hold out or not. The oxygen in the room seemed to evaporate. Robert let go of my hand and stared at the split pills in Dr. Miller's palm as if they were evidence of a crime. Because they were. But that means? My son started to say, and I saw his brain working, connecting the dots he had been ignoring for weeks. That means someone could have killed her. Dr. Miller nodded gravely. What happened last night was not a normal arrhythmia episode. It was a direct reaction to misadministered medication. Mrs. Sarah was lucky her heart resisted. Another person with her condition would not be here anymore. Vanessa took a step back, bumping into the wall. Her hands trembled slightly, but her expression remained one of calculated indignation. You cannot be insinuating that This is ridiculous. Sarah probably split them herself and now wants to blame me. She always does this. She always plays the victim. Mom. Robert turned to me with eyes shining with held-back tears. Tell me the truth. Who split your pills? I looked at my son, then at Vanessa. She returned my gaze with those cold, defiant eyes. In her expression, I clearly read the message. If you speak, you lose your son forever. He will believe me, not you. But something had changed inside me. Maybe it was the closeness of death. Maybe it was seeing Robert finally paying attention to me. Maybe it was simply that I had nothing left to lose. Vanessa, I said, and my voice came out firmer than it had sounded in months. Vanessa split them 3 weeks ago. She told me that way they would last longer and we would save money. Lie, Vanessa shouted, and her mask finally began to crack. She is lying. Robert, your mother, is inventing things to separate us. But Robert was not looking at her. He was looking at me. And in his eyes, I saw something I had not seen in years. Doubt about Vanessa. Finally, after so much time, my son was questioning his wife. Is it true? Robert asked, turning to Vanessa. Did you split my mom's pills? I just wanted to help, Vanessa stuttered, and her voice lost all its previous security. The pills are very expensive, Robert. $600 every month. I thought with half it would be enough. That we would save. You thought, Robert replied. Who gave you the right to think about my mother's health? Who told you to play with her medication? You, Vanessa replied, recovering some of her venom. You said your mom was a financial burden. You said she spent too much. You said we needed to save. I was just doing what you wanted. The room fell silent again. Robert stood paralyzed with those words nailing into his conscience. I saw the exact moment my son understood his own complicity. Dr. Miller cleared her throat, breaking the moment. I need to be very clear about something. What was done here was not an innocent mistake by someone who wanted to save money. It was criminal negligence that endangered my patient's life. It was not negligence. I said, surprising myself with the firmness of my voice. I told her the doctor had said I could not split the pills. I explained they were extended release. She knew. All eyes turned to Vanessa. Her face, which had started to pale, was now completely white, like paper, just as I described in the office. I did not know it was so serious, she murmured, but her voice lacked conviction. Yes, you knew, I continued, and I felt something ancient and dormant inside me waking up. Fury. I told you the same day you split them. I told you Dr. Miller was very specific, and you answered me that doctors exaggerate, that they just want to sell medicines. Sarah, I never... And it was not just that. I interrupted her, my voice gaining strength with every word. You said if I did not like it, I could leave, that option was on the table. You threatened to kick me into the street if I did not take the split pills. Robert collapsed into the chair, covering his face with his hands. My God, he whispered. What have we done? What she did, Dr. Miller corrected, pointing at Vanessa. And I need to ask you directly, Mrs. Vanessa, did you know that altering this medication could kill Mrs. Sarah? Vanessa opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her eyes moved frantically between all of us, looking for an exit that did not exist. Finally, something in her broke. She is a burden, she shouted, and all her true nature surfaced like pus from an infected wound. She lives in our house, spends our money, occupies our space. I just wanted things to be easier for us. Easier. Robert repeated, lifting his head to look at her. You put my mother's life at risk so things would be easier. For us. Vanessa insisted, approaching him. Everything I did was for us, Robert, so we could have our own life without your mother always being in the middle. Do you not understand? As long as she is there, we will never be free. Free Robert's voice was barely a whisper, loaded with horror. Vanessa, you almost killed her. My mother almost died because you altered her medicines. You exaggerate, Vanessa replied, but her voice no longer had strength. She was not going to die from taking half a pill instead of a whole one. She was just being dramatic as always. Dr. Miller intervened, her voice professional, but with an edge of steel. Mrs. Vanessa, you need to understand something. What you did constitutes a crime. It is endangering the life of another person. I am required by law to report this. The color left in Vanessa disappeared completely. Report. You cannot. I did nothing illegal. I just tried to save money. You altered prescribed medication knowing it was dangerous. Dr. Miller continued. Mrs. Sarah warned you specifically. You ignored those warnings and proceeded anyway. That is not negligence, ma'am. That is intentional. Robert Vanessa turned to my son with desperation. Tell them they are wrong. Tell them I would never do something like that. You know me. You know I love you. That I love our life together. But Robert was not looking at her. He was looking at me. And in his eyes I saw something I had not seen in 3 years. Recognition. Finally, after so much time, my son was really seeing me. Mom, he said with a broken voice, forgive me. God forgive me for not believing you, for not defending you, for letting this get so far. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. They were not tears of sadness, but of relief. My son had returned. Late. Almost too late. But he had returned. Robert, you cannot believe her. Vanessa pleaded with a shrill voice. Your mother has always been manipulative. She is acting now, so you take her side. It is what she has always done. Shut up, Robert said, and his voice was cold as ice. Just shut up, Vanessa. I do not want to hear your voice anymore. Vanessa recoiled as if she had been slapped. For the first time since I met her, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. She had lost her control over Robert, and she knew it. Doctor. Miller headed towards the door. I am going to call security and report this incident. Mrs. Vanessa, I suggest you get a lawyer. A lawyer? Vanessa's voice was barely a squeak. They cannot do this. Robert, do something. But my son only shook his head with tears falling down his face. I already did too much, Vanessa. Or rather, I did nothing when I should have. And that almost cost my mother her life. Vanessa looked at me then with pure hatred, without filters, without masks. This is your fault, she hissed. It is all your fault. If you had left when you should have, none of this would have happened. No, I said, holding her gaze without blinking. This is your fault, Vanessa, for being greedy, for being cruel, for believing you could take everything from me, including my life, and get away with it. Dr. Miller returned with 2 security guards. Mrs. Vanessa, I need to ask you to leave the hospital, now. Vanessa opened her mouth to protest, but the guards were already flanking her. With a last look of fury towards me, she let herself be escorted out of the room. Her expensive perfume was left floating in the air as evidence of her poisonous presence. When the door closed behind her, Robert collapsed. He knelt beside my bed, took my hand between his, and cried like I had not seen him cry since he was a child. "I am sorry, Mom," he sobbed. "I am so sorry. I was an idiot, a terrible son. I failed you in everything. I stroked his hair as I did when he had nightmares as a little boy." "You are here now," I said softly. "That is what matters." But deep in my heart, I knew this was not over. Vanessa had shown her true face, yes, but a woman like her would not give up so easily, and I had to make sure she could never hurt anyone again. It was time to stop being the victim. It was time to fight. They kept me hospitalized 3 more days, 3 days of constant monitoring, of adjusting my medication with controlled intravenous doses, of allowing my heart to relearn to beat with the correct rhythm. 3 days in which Robert did not leave my side, sleeping in that uncomfortable chair, bringing me water, apologizing every hour as if words could erase 3 years of abandonment. I forgave him. Of course I forgave him. He was my son. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw the split pills. I heard the nightly conversations where he had agreed with every cruelty of Vanessa. A mother's love is unconditional, but trust once broken needs more than apologies to rebuild. The second day, while Robert had gone down to the cafeteria, I received an unexpected visit. The door opened and my cousin Linda entered, with her leather briefcase and that elegant bearing that had always characterized her. Linda was 62 years old. She was a lawyer specializing in family law, and we had not seen each other in almost 2 years because Vanessa had found 1,000 excuses to prevent her from visiting. "Sarah," she said, and her voice broke seeing me connected to all those machines. She approached and hugged me carefully, not to disconnect any cables. I found out from a neighbor. I came as soon as I could. I cried in her arms. I cried everything I had not been able to cry in 3 years. All the accumulated pain, all the stored humiliation. Linda held me in silence, letting me empty all that anguish. When finally I calmed down, she sat in the chair Robert had been occupying and took a notebook out of her briefcase. Her expression had changed from family concern to professional concentration. "Tell me everything," she said, "from the beginning, and do not skip anything." I told her every detail, the gradual invasion of my house, the loss of my bedroom, the money they forced me to pay, the constant humiliations. And finally, the split pills and the veiled threat to kick me out if I did not obey. Linda wrote fast, her sharp eyes shining with something I recognized as professional fury. When I finished, she closed her notebook with a dry snap. "Sarah, what Vanessa did is not only morally reprehensible, it is legally actionable," she said, leaning forward. "We are talking about financial abuse, psychological abuse, and most gravely endangering your life by altering your medication. That is a criminal offense." "I do not want to get Robert in trouble," I said immediately. "Robert is an adult who made decisions," Linda replied firmly, "and now he has to face the consequences. But I am not talking about him. I am talking about you, about protecting you, about ensuring this never happens again." She took more papers out of her briefcase. "First, that house is yours. It has your name on the deed. No one, absolutely no one, can force you to share it or pay to live in it. Second, the money they took from you monthly constitutes theft. You have the right to recover it. Third, we need a restraining order against Vanessa, a restraining order, so she cannot approach you or your property. She already demonstrated she represents a real danger to your life, Sarah. Dr. Miller already made the official report. That is solid evidence. The idea terrified me and liberated me at the same time. And Robert, if I kick Vanessa out of the house, does my son also have to leave? Linda sighed. That is a decision Robert will have to take, but you need to set clear limits. No more invasions, no more abuse. Your house, your rules. If he wants to stay, it will be under your terms, not hers. I am afraid, I admitted. Afraid of being alone. Robert is all I have left. Being alone is better than being accompanied by someone who wants to destroy you, said Linda, taking my hand. And you are not alone. You have me. You have neighbors who love you. You have a life that deserves to be lived with dignity. At that moment, Robert returned with a coffee in his hand. He stopped seeing Linda, and something in his expression told me he knew exactly why she was there. Cousin Linda. He greeted with a tense voice. Robert. She replied with professional coldness. I was just talking to Sarah about her legal options. My son paled. Mom, please do not do this. I already understood. I know I was wrong. Vanessa and I will separate. She will leave. I will stay. And everything will be like before. It cannot be like before, I said softly. Robert, I almost died. And you agreed with everything she did. You said I was a burden, that I dramatized, that I needed to grow up. He collapsed into a chair, head between his hands. I know, and I hate myself for that. But I was blind, Mom. Vanessa manipulated me, made me believe things that were not true. Now I see it clearly. And what guarantees you will not be blinded again? Linda asked. What guarantees that in a few months, when your mother forgives you and lowers her guard, resentment won't return for having to take care of her? That another Vanessa won't appear? I am not like that.